Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Feel free to share your greetings in the chats. Good morning. Good morning, Nomzamo. Good morning, Yambura. Good morning, Mohammed. Good
Hello,
morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat room. Good morning, Victoria. Good morning, Kunda. Good morning, Michelle, Mura. Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, Redouane. Yes, I'm doing good. Hope you are as well. Morning, welcome. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Good morning, welcome. Welcome. Good morning, Wiza. Good morning, Moikabi. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Let us know how's your weekend been, how's the program been for you so far. Top of the morning to you, Chidima, as well. Morning, Favor. Morning, May. Welcome, everyone. So thank you so much for being here with us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Welcome from across the continent. So we're going to wait for a few seconds while the rest of the team joins in. Welcome, Walu. Good morning. Welcome. Okay, so let's go straight into it. Good morning, Allah. Hi, Yara. So please, if you go to the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to access the Arabic channel. But I would go through all the breakdown currently. All right, welcome everyone. Congratulations once again on being part of the incubator program. I know we had our first touch point last week during the onboarding session. So congratulations once again, you've been selected, onboarded to the program, and this is our first training session of many. So we look forward to an engaging couple of weeks and the growth as well that you would experience over the next few weeks. So today's topic is on the fashion business fundamentals. Before we go into the various building blocks of your business, how do we ensure that the basic foundational things needed for your fashion business to thrive, you have that information and you have that toolkit to ensure that you're properly equipped to start your fashion business if it's just an idea, to improve your fashion business if you've already started operations as well. Okay, so again, a run through of our various breakdowns. So make sure your camera is on if possible. Like we mentioned, this is a virtual program. So we would love to have that human touch and feel to the program. Let's know who Beatrice looks like. Let's know who Rebecca looks like. Let's know what Precious looks like. Let's know what Peter looks like. And also, like I said earlier, introduce yourself and the business in the chat room as well. Then some ground rules: switch on your camera, participate actively. As we go through the training session, it's possible the facilitator mentioned something that, you've been waiting for this gold mine of knowledge all your life. Let us know in the chat that was what you just needed. You have questions during the course of the session, feel free to put them in the chat. Myself and the rest of the team are taking notes of every question that comes in, and when we get to the Q&A session, we'll address all of that. So also use the chat box to ask questions and also give space to others. Feel free to interact within the chat room. Someone may share something regarding a training concept and how it impacted their business. If it's something that resonates with you, feel free to share your thoughts and your opinions as well. Okay. I can see some chats. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Hi, everyone. So recordings of the session will be shared with us all after the session. Okay, perfect. So how can we access various languages during the session? So if you look at the bottom end of your Zoom platform, you'll see a world icon with the title interpretation under. Once you select that, you'll see the other three languages available: French, Arabic, and Portuguese. So if you select Arabic, for example, make sure that you also select the option that says mute original audio. That way you only hear the Arabic channel and then you no longer hear myself or the facilitator speaking in English. And then once you select those both options, you'll be directed to your channel automatically and you listen to the rest of the session in your preferred language. If you have any issues accessing this as well, please let us know in the chat and we're happy to help and support. Secondly, if you prefer to also access captions during the course of the session, just to help you or support you throughout the session, if you go to the bottom of your screen again, you will see 3 dots. Under the 3 dots, it's labeled More. Select that option, and then you would see a breakdown of various features that you have access to. Select Captions, and then under Captions, you select the language you prefer your captions to be in: English, French, Arabic, Portuguese. The other language options, well, those are the languages of the session. And then you select that, and then you can go ahead to access your preferred caption as well. All right, so we're about to go into the meat of the matter. Are we excited for today's session? Are we excited? Let us know in the chat. We have come with you with the best of the best. So please come with the best of the best energy, please. All right, I see our reactions. I see our comments. Great. Great, great, great. We love this. We love it. Okay, so we have the amazing Rhoda Ogonigo with us this morning. So she is a fashion business consultant, and she's also the founder of the Great Lord Africa, doing amazing work across the African continent and bringing African fashion entrepreneurs to the world, quite literally. So I'm really excited for Rhoda to share her expertise with us, to share her journey as well, and the insights that will be of great value to you all. So Rhoda, thank you so much for being here, and over to you.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Just confirming that everyone can hear me and see me. Amazing, 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 amazing. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to facilitate today's session. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into, your fashion business fundamentals, the very foundations that establish your business. My name
Hi, Rhoda, please. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yes, my name is Rhoda. I lead a creative institution and community called Loud Africa. And a lot of our work centers around capacity development, community engagement, and global trade. And I'm excited to, facilitate today's session. And when I run my sessions, one of the first things I always love to hear and look out for is, the kind of businesses that are in the room. So I know that the chat has been buzzing and I've been seeing a lot of your name and your location, but I'd like to see some feedback. What's the name of your business? What does your business specialize in? So, are you a ready-to-wear brand? Are you a bespoke brand? Do you make footwear? Do you make accessories? So I want us to do this way, put in chat your name, your location, and a two or maybe one sentence about your business and what your business does. So I want us to do that, put that in the chat, so that we get to know each other. Yes, thank you guys. I'm loving this comment section. Okay, so your name, the name of your business, your location, and a sentence. What kind of brand do you run? Amazing. I see a brand from Morocco. I have a leather goods brand called Yema Leather. Wonderful. A brand from Kenya, ladies and men's suit. Great. Afro-Wema Kenya, sustainable social impact fashion brand. Amazing. Amazing. Owambe fashion. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, lovely. I'd like to see more. Amazing. And let me tell, I mean, one thing I always say to people is anytime you're in a room and you have an opportunity to talk about what you do, you want to take that opportunity. You know, you always want to be one of the first set of people or be very proactive with sharing your business, sharing the work that you do, because you never know the kind of connections, opportunities that you can get from sharing that. Amazing. I see from Malawi, sustainable circular business. Okay, the chat is going so fast. Studio in Kenya, Lesotho, amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. So let's get into it, so that I don't exceed my time this morning. Please, can we have the next slide? Okay, amazing. So today's course, we are looking into the business of fashion in Africa, and this is something that I really love. I think that is a very important part of the creative economy here. Why we are filled with, you know, a lot of creative and talented businesses and professionals. Understanding the fundamentals and the basics of running a fashion business is very important. And sometimes it starts with just really knowing the simple things and setting the right foundation for your business. So at the end of this course, you are going to understand the business of fashion. You're going to be able to understand global business opportunities in the fashion industry. And I will say that there are a lot of global business opportunities. At this time, the entire world is looking to the continent, where creative design, craftsmanship, heritage exist. And I think that there's so many opportunities for every brand, everybody, you know, represented here. There's so much that you can tap into. You're also going to have a deeper insight and knowledge on running a successful fashion business. And yes, so can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, amazing. So today we're going to be running through all of these things. Fingers crossed, we're going to run through everything. The first one is understanding, I mean, why you even starting a fashion business. That's the very foundation, because your why determines a lot of things in running your business. How to start your business, identifying fashion opportunities, the basics of setting up a fashion business. And at that point, we're going to run through 10 building blocks, fashion product knowledge and development, and we're going to touch on technology tools for fashion entrepreneurs and businesses. Amazing. I can see that we are still talking about our businesses in the chat, and that's lovely. Africa is not afraid of patterns and colors. That is one thing we do in our sleep. So we use it to be louder amongst our foreign friends. And I remember when I saw this quote, I thought that it was quite interesting, and it speaks to I mean, the creative industry and the fashion industry. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that the world is, I mean, curious, is interested, is buying into African fashion because of our bold expression, how we express ourselves through prints and all of those. Recently, we had one of the things that we do at Loud is we connect brands locally here to global trade, whether it's through like pop-ups and trade shows. And we had recently sent some, we had some of our designers go to a trade show in Paris. And I remember when we were running through the preparation and looking through line sheets and all of that, one of the things that we had given feedback to the designers were, oh, you know, go with more toned down colors, more westernized colors and prints and all of that. But I remember after the trade show and when they had come back, a lot of the feedback that we got from the designers were, you know, a lot of people really liked the heavy prints, the bold colors, Ashoke, the tie and dye. And I thought it was very interesting because if you had asked me previously, I would say, you know, as when you go for trade shows, especially because you want boutiques and wholesalers to buy from you, you typically go with things that feed into that climate. But from the feedback that we've gotten and even from the success of that trade show, one thing that I can say and we do know is that the world is, you know, interested. The world is loving our bold colors, our prints, our interpretation of fabric, our interpretation of design. And, you know, now is such a good time for you to be so confident in your creativity, to express yourself, express your heritage, whether it's in your footwear, you know, how you design your shoes, in the bags, the colors, or in your outfits, you know, whatever layer you fall under. I think that the world is ready to embrace the fullness of the expression. that comes out of the continent, and that's amazing. Can we have the next slide? Okay, so let's get into it. What is a fashion business? I think, can we go back to the previous slide? Because I want this to, now the answer is already on the screen, but yes, yeah, thank you. So what is a fashion business? And I mean, a lot of people, I'm reading the charts and I can see that there are loads of fashion entrepreneurs in this session this morning. So I'm asking you, what is a fashion business? I want to see answers. What is your interpretation of a fashion business? Okay, got it. What is your interpretation of a fashion business? I'd like to see that. One line, if somebody came up to you and said, "Oh, you're in fashion, or you have a fashion business." What is a fashion business to you? I'd like to see some of our responses. And I'll tell you, there's no wrong answer. Amazing. Getting people to look good and improve their productivity. I love that answer. I love that answer. A fashion business is a business that handles the buying and selling of fashion items. Amazing. Business of self-expression. I love that. I love that. A perfect moderation business at scale. I think I want more answers, more context to that. Um, a business, okay, it's going really fast. Investing in the market and industry to make wealth. That's a bit generic, but that's interesting. Business of giving confidence to people. Amazing. Amazing. I love these answers. And I think one interesting thing is if you look through the charts, you see how we have multiple interpretations of what a fashion business is. And from everything that we're seeing in the charts, it's a business of self-expression, helping people look good, helping people be productive, buying and selling of clothing, the business of how people look, feel, and express themselves, saving the planet with style. Amazing. I love it. I think you need to give yourself a round of applause. All right, so we can go to the next slide so we get into it. Representing your culture. I love that. I love that. Preserving culture. Amazing. And I think one of the things that I wanted to pull out from this is to show you that there's so many interpretations, right, of what it means to running fashion business. There's so many interpretations because for every different person, you've had your own experience, you've had your own why, and we're going to come into it. So for somebody, you said, oh, a fashion business is a business of preserving culture, right? And if I probably asked you, I'd get a lot more from your background, from where you're coming from, and why you probably started your business was because you wanted to speak about your culture. For somebody else, it said it's about self-confidence and expression, right? Another person, it's a business. A fashion business is a business of styling, of design, of fabrics, of accessories, right? We all have different interpretations, and every single answer is correct, right? But let's come to my slide. A fashion business is a business that involves the designing, manufacturing, marketing, and selling of different kinds of apparel. So in today's session, we're focusing on it as a business, right? We're not, I mean, the main focus is as a business in itself. And of course, a business is, solving a problem, delivering value in exchange for money or, commensurate value. So the fashion business is a business that involves designing, manufacturing, marketing, and selling of different types of apparel. So it's not just designing. So if you're designing and you're not manufacturing, you're not running a business yet. If you're designing and manufacturing, but you're not selling, you're not running a business yet. Because one of the major parts of running a business is sales, right? It's selling, the exchange of value for money. So selling. So a fashion business involves designing, manufacturing, marketing, and selling. So it means that if you're running a business, you have to run across the entire ecosystem. If you're only designing, then you are a designer. You're not running a fashion business. If you're only designing, then what that means is you're a creative director, you are a designer, you're not running a fashion business. If you're only manufacturing and you're not selling, you're probably a manufacturer, but of course, if you manufacture for people and you sell that, in exchange for value, then it's a business. Oftentimes, people think of three main segments in the fashion business. And I think that in recent times, in the last 3 years, I would say this has started to change and evolve a lot. But there's still so much room for progress, right? Oftentimes, when people think of fashion business, when they think of the fashion industry, when you walk up to somebody and you say, I run a fashion business, people only think about three things: design and production. So you're making clothes, you're a tailor, distribution, or you're selling clothes, you have a boutique, you have a store, or media, which is, or you know what, you have a magazine, you have a blog, but there's so many other aspects. The fashion industry encompasses so many other different smaller aspects. I mean, if I bring myself in the context of this, I'm not designing or producing. Um, I've done it before, right? But I'm not designing or producing. I'm not directly doing retail. I mean, I'm indirectly doing retail through like global trade initiatives, but I'm not directly doing retail. And then media, okay, maybe I do a bit of media. But my point is there's so many other aspects of the fashion industry. Exactly. I see somebody in the chat saying a bit like us, we connect fashion players and customers, which includes marketing and advertising. We make money and the couturiers or designers win. Amazing. So that's the point, that there's so many other aspects. The industry is so vast, especially when you look at the fashion business on a global scale. There are consultants, there they're show producers. There's so many. I mean, they're fashion business experts. There's so many other different players in the ecosystem, right? And right now, the global fashion industry was estimated at $1.75 trillion in 2024. Of course, it's 2025 now, so it might be slightly higher, it might be slightly lower, but it gives you an idea of the enormity of potential and resources and value that the fashion industry has. And one thing you need to ask yourself now is, with my business as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, how much of this estimate of this, estimating the ecosystem do I want to tap into? How much do I want to tap into? A lot of times when we start our businesses, we're thinking about passion, we're thinking about problem solving, we're thinking about expression, but do we really think about business? And I think we're going to come to it in the next slide when we talk about your why. A lot of us, start our business because we love creating, we wanted to give ourselves self-expression, we wanted to solve problems, we want to push our culture, but this fashion industry is what over, it's over $1.7 trillion, right? And what that means is that there's a lot of potential for you, and there's so much that you can make out of your business. And that's the mindset that I want us to have as we go through this session. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, amazing. So we even have a more broken down fashion ecosystem here. So there's textile design and production. Does anybody here do textile design and production? If you do, can I see some emojis? Let's see how well represented we are in this room. Anybody doing textile design and production? Okay, I see Faith, I see Amal, I see Murimi. Okay, I see a couple of people. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yes, and you are you're representing a very important ecosystem, because we must continually produce locally. If we want to lead, if we want to build an ecosystem and industry that leads, we need to be able to own several value chains in the ecosystem. And one of that value chain is production and manufacturing, because today, a lot of businesses and designers within the continent have to export fabrics from different parts of the world, from Turkey, from India, from China. But we need a stronger textile production and design value chain. So if you are in that value chain, you are rightly positioned. You just need to think about how you can own that and do more with it. Amazing. I see somebody saying they're designing banana fabric from banana waste. That is amazing. So the next one is fashion design and manufacturing. Oh, amazing. We focus on silk production. And this is amazing. I think one of the other things you want to do as you go through this cohort and thing is find ways to collaborate. So there are designers in the room who are looking to work with locally produced textiles. And then there are people who are producing textile. And this is why it's important to talk about what you do, because while you're here to learn to build better businesses, your customers, your collaborators, your partners might be on the program with you and in the room with you. So we have fashion design and manufacturing. I'm sure we have a lot of people in the room right now who do that. We have fashion retailing, marketing and merchandising. Is anybody here into fashion retailing? You own a retail store, whether it's e-commerce, brick and mortar, anyone? Um, I'd like to see emojis if there's anyone. Okay, I see one person. I see Sarah. Okay, Abraham, Belinda. Amazing, amazing. Then we have fashion shows. Of course, you know this already. So across Africa, we have the Dakar Fashion Week, we have Kenyan Fashion Week, we have Nairobi Fashion Week, we have Lagos Fashion Week, we have South African Fashion Week. So there's so many fashion weeks, major ones, emerging ones across the continent. We have fashion PR, media, and storytelling. And this is also another part of the value chain that I think that we is still a bit scarce, and we need more people getting into it, because one thing we need to be able to do is own our narrative. The world is, curious about the industry here. The world is embracing our heritage, our design, but we need to be very intentional about PR, about media, about storytelling. We need to own our story. If we don't own our story, our craftsmanship, all of the design, the heritage, everything that you care so much about can be misinterpreted. Recently, I mean, it's been fashion weeks across the world. On one of the global fashion week, a global brand had debuted a bag, and this bag was made with Ghana Must Go fabric, right? And this bag is carrying the designer's name. There was no allusion to the inspiration coming from Africa or coming from any of the countries in Africa. And this is what's going to happen if we don't pay a lot of attention to media, to storytelling, to PR. We must own our narrative. We must be very intentional about pushing out our brands. And even if you don't own, if you're a fashion designer, a very important part of your business is storytelling and media. So while you're producing, you're selling, you're doing all of those things, you have to be very intentional about telling your story and owning your narrative. If not, it will be misinterpreted. And a big part of the fashion industry is storytelling, is media. That's why we all love Vogue. We all love all of these platforms, because they are amplifiers. So we also need to be intentional about creating amplifiers. We have fashion technology and innovation. Right now, there's so many. I mean, there's e-commerce, there's AI in fashion, there's VR, there's using fashion to illustrate. There's so many companies that do fashion technology and innovation. Again, there's also a gap here. So if there's anybody here, you're thinking about it, you can look into it. And finally, this one I love. We have fashion business development, systems, and structure, which is a key part that I play in working with businesses to build structure. Because remember, if your business is going to scale, if our ecosystem is going to scale, if the African fashion industry is going to be a force to reckon with, we need to think about institutions, we need to think about systems, we need to think about structure, and we need to think about development. Yes, I see somebody saying there's blockchain technology too. So that's also a part of the global fashion value chain. So I've just run us through the global fashion value chain. And, I think you can find yourself somewhere in this global fashion value chain. And just off that, identifying fashion business opportunities. And I think that I've touched on this slightly already, which is just sharing that which is just running through the fact that there's so many different layers. And one thing I should say to you is that even if you are a fashion designer already, it does not mean that you cannot tap into other parts of the value chain. Whether it's augmented AI, like somebody is saying in the chat, or it's production or it's textile design. As you build your fashion design business, you can tap into it, into these different parts of the value chain. into these different parts of the value chain. And there are different key opportunity highlights. Just running through it again, there's fashion technology and innovation, garment production, textile design and manufacturing, fashion media and storytelling, fashion as a tool for change and social development. And I should say this that, as you're building your business, if you're looking to play on the global scale and, you want to interact with the world on a global scale, you want to pay attention to all of these opportunity highlights. Because when it comes to playing on the global scale, one of the things that stands you out or makes you acceptable in different parts of the world is the value that you bring as a business. So there's a point you get to in your business where it's no longer just about buying and selling. It's what value are you bringing? Is it your unique interpretation of design and style? Is it your sustainable production method, which is a challenge that the global fashion is dealing with? So imagine that here we have businesses that have hacked sustainable production, and you're going with those solutions to the world. To different industries like in the US, Europe, where there are all of these challenges where sustainable production is concerned. A lot of companies in Europe, some of them, not a lot, some of them produce locally here. And that's because, some businesses or some factories locally here, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in some of these different places across the world, across the continent, across Africa, have figured out how to produce sustainably, working with artisans, reducing fabric waste. So even if you're a fashion designer, you have a large space where you produce your items. It's something to think about. How can my business start to solve some of the fashion world's problem? So is it design? Is it, textile design and manufacturing? Is it fashion media and storytelling? Is it fashion as a tool for social change and development? And, this is also a gap. We need more businesses here, more fashion designers being more vocal. I think sometimes we are very comfortable with how we run our business. You're employing people, you're supporting artisans, you're supporting local communities. That is a big deal, and that's something that you want to amplify. That's something that you want to put forward, because that's something that puts you on a pedestal where the global fashion industry is concerned. So there are all of these opportunities here. And one key thing that is important when it comes to tapping into global opportunities and building a business that is successful is building your professional network. So even if you're a designer, what platforms can you use? You can be on LinkedIn. It's not only Instagram and TikTok. Talk about your business, talk about the work you're doing, place more value around the work you're doing, evolve beyond just sewing, designing, and selling. Leverage more storytelling. What problems are you solving? Who are you employing? How is your business supporting the economy in your country or in the place that you're based? What value is your business bringing? Where the world is moving to, and now even with the target audience that you're selling to, a lot of people are interested in storytelling. A lot of people will buy from you because of the value that you've attached to your business. Even when you're dealing with like global retailers and global platforms, one thing they always want to know is, the value, the problems you're solving, how your business is affecting society, whether it's affecting the ecosystem, whether it's affecting people, what problem is it solving? So this is one thing that you want to think about as you build your business, even with your community, the people you buy to, the people you sell to rather, they are interested. Sometimes we think that people just want to buy clothes, buy shoes, buy bags and go, but people are interested in, the story behind your brand. People are interested in, the values, the things that your brand, the problems that your brand is solving. Amazing. Somebody saying, I use fashion as a tool for social change in my community. That is powerful, and that should be a part of your brand story and your fashion, your business story. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, let's get into it. How to start your fashion business. And one thing I want to gauge in the room right now is I want to see where we are. Can you put in the chat, how long have you been running your fashion business? If you've been running it for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years, if you're just about to start, can you put it in the chat? Let me see that in the chat, and I just need a minute. Okay, amazing. I see 1 year, 3 years, 1 year, 3 years, 2 years, 9 months, 1 year, 4 years, 3 years, 1 year, about to start. Amazing. 2 years, mine is in the boarding phase. 6 months now, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months. I've just conceived it. Amazing, about to start. Okay, great. So 5 years, then we started 1.5 year, 2 years. Amazing. Okay, so I wanted to get a feel of on where we are in our business because this next part we're about to go to is quite important. And depending on where you are in your business, it can be easy to start to implement or it can be slightly harder. Um, Amazing. First of all, I want you all to give yourself a round of applause. The engagement is lovely. I love all of the feedback, how everyone is prompt to respond and just share. And that's how you know that, you're really ready for growth. I love it. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, so let's get into it. So from what we can see in the room, there's an average of about 2 years, 1 to 2 years in business. And we have quite a number of people who are just starting. If you're 3 years and above, 3 to 4, 5 years, don't worry, we're all together. There's no point. And that's also one thing I want to tell you. There is no point in your business that you cannot reinvent your business. You cannot reinvent yourself. You cannot reinvent your business. In fact, just like every other business, your business should consistently transition. That is how you build a business that does not die or run out of vogue or run out of the market, especially because you run a business in a creative industry, in the fashion industry. It's an industry that is very about trend, it's very about demand, it's very about style. So one thing that you must consistently do is transition. You cannot still be selling the same collections or products that you've been selling since 3 years ago or since 5 years ago. It's just a matter of time before your business gets into a comatose. So transition, evolving, redefining, remodeling your business over time is a very important part of your business, especially in the creative industry. So if you're, 5 years and above, don't worry, we're all together. So I'm going to be running you through a 10-stage prototype to launch in your business. And this is going to be very useful for those who are just about to start, those who have started or have just started. And even if you started, years ago, it's still very useful for you. The first stage, and this stage, I think that a lot of people miss it, is so important. It is so important. You need to get an understanding of the industry. You need to get an understanding of the industry. One of the most important things you need to do when you're starting a business, you're launching a new product, you're going into a new part of the ecosystem. For example, you've been running your business for a while and now you're about to look into retailing, distribution. You need research. Research must be at the very foundation of what you do and how you run your business. And the thing about this prototype I'm sharing with you is that it's not only applicable when you're starting your business, you can apply it, you're launching new products, you're launching new platforms, you're going into new markets. It's applicable consistently. So research is important. Get an understanding of the industry. Like I shared with you earlier, what is this industry worth? Okay, this industry is worth this amount, but how much in this amount actually comes to the industry? What parts of the ecosystem in this industry is already established? What part is just starting? Who are the major buyers? You need to understand how the fashion industry in Africa works. The fashion industry in the US, the fashion industry in Europe, the fashion industry in Asia, and the fashion industry in Africa is completely different. So when you're coming into the business, and this is why sometimes, we come into the business, some people start and they launch an e-commerce store, and after a while, it feels like it goes down. You need to understand how the industry works. You need to understand how people buy here, how people run here, how things work. So for the longest time, a lot of businesses here up until about COVID, for the longest time, a lot of people would rather walk into stores, rather talk to you directly to buy from you. So the fashion industry for the longest time was very people dependent. You had to be at fashion shows. You needed to do pop-ups. You needed to connect with people personally. But since COVID, it has really changed a lot and a lot more people buy online. There are a lot more digital shows and people are open to it. We are having a workshop right now, right? And it's virtual and everyone is learning. but a couple of, years ago, it might have been slightly harder. So you need to understand how the industry works. A couple of years ago, in places like the US, in Europe, it wasn't hard. It was normal to do e-commerce. It was normal to do things online, right? But here it took a bit of time because we are very people-oriented. We're a very people-oriented continent. We're a very people-oriented ecosystem. So you need to understand how the industry works. Or what's the best way to launch your business? Or you want to do fashion shows. What are the best fashion shows to do? What levels should you position your business? What are the top retail stores, the top stores? Oh, here, do retail stores buy or do they do drop shipping? And this is something that this is another difference between the continent, the fashion industry here and globally. So a lot of retail stores here don't buy, they drop ship. They do drop shipping, they do consignments, they do made to order, they do you drop your products after you sell, they make refund, they make rebates and payments to you. But in other parts of the world, in I mean, if you're dealing with global retailers, you talk of the Nordstrom and Co. They buy from you. So if they see what they like, they're going to make an order. Oh, we need 50 pieces of this design. We need 100 pieces of this design. That's how it works. That's how retailing and wholesale works in the other parts of the world. Or in Africa, very few retail stores or wholesalers buy. So what they'd rather do is tell you, I like this. Can you make it? Can you produce it? You produce it and you send it to their store. And when they sell, they make payments to you. So you need to understand the ecosystem. You need you need to get an understanding of the industry because that would also help you understand where you want to position your business. Or I want to be ready to wear. I want to produce everything down, upload it on a website and sell directly. Or I want to do made to order. I want people to come to me, order in bit, and then I make and I sell. You need to understand because that then defines how you run your business and the kind of models that you apply. Number two, identify the market you want to serve. And this is pretty much easy. So the industry is large, the market is large, whether it's footwear, bags, clothing, accessories, consulting, whatever layer of the industry, media, you have to identify because the market is large. So there is the upper luxury bit of the market, which is not really accessible, very very high demand, not as accessible. There's an accessible luxury. There are brands, there are products that are quite accessible, slightly priced higher than normal. There's the mid-level brands where it's accessible, it's affordable, it's quality. There's the other part of the market where it's mass market. You need to identify what part of it do you want to serve. If you're making clothes, who do you want to sell your clothes to? Do you want to sell your clothes to everybody and anybody? That affects, how you price your products, where you place it, the kind of shows you do. Do you want to do accessible luxury, where you're somewhere high, but you're not out of reach for people? I mean, identify the market you want to serve. Number two, identify your customer segments. Who do you want to sell to? Okay, who do you want to sell to? Who do you want to sell to? Identify who you want to sell to. Um, Identify who you want to sell to, who your target audience is, the people, because even in the markets that you've identified, right? So if you say, oh, I'm going to do accessible luxury, even within accessible luxury, there are different customer segments. Do you want to sell to the corporate community? Do you want to sell to moms? Do you want to sell to plus size? Do you want to sell to baddies and people who want to look hot and good? Do you want to sell to more royal? I mean, there are different segments. Identify your market, identify your segment. And this is important because you might not sell specifically and only to that audience or to that market. There might be people from other segments and other audience that buy from you, and that's fine because you're trying to sell. But when you've identified your audience and your segment, it helps define how you position your brand. So even your marketing, your branding, how you show up, and this is a challenge that some of us have. We show up, we look like we're all over the place, right? Your page is very busy. Your everything is because you've not identified your segment. When you identify your segment, one thing you want to do is, okay, for this kind of people, what appeals to them? The way that you're going to sell to a Gen Z is different from the way you're going to sell to a baby boomer. Gen Zs want storytelling. They want to feel like you care about them. They want to feel like, this brand, they want community. But older generations, they want comfort, they want functionality. So for them, it's about buying. I just want to buy and wear and go. But for a lot of the younger generation is, do I feel connected to you? Does this feel like a community? I think Gen Zs and millennials follow. So even identifying your customer segment helps you define your storytelling. It helps you define how you want to build your brand. Old Gen Zs, the younger generation, Gen Zs, millennials, they don't mind buying off a website. They're going to buy off your website. That's fine. But an older generation might feel like I need to talk to you personally. I need to, trust you. So you need to identify your customer segment, because that then defines how you run your business, how you do your business, the way you communicate, the systems you set up in your business, how you sell. It also defines the kind of platforms that you want to take advantage of and the kind of places you want to be in. It also determines, oh, do I need to have a brick and mortar store so that people can trust me? Or is e-commerce and selling online fine? It's very important. So once you've done these things, then develop a plan. Okay, this is the kind of business I want to do. I'm doing a ready-to-wear business. I want it to be accessible luxury. I want to sell to the middle class and upper middle class women. I want to focus on women who had an elevated sense of style. They like to travel. They don't mind investing in how they look. A lot of them are based in this kind of cities, or they're in Cape Town, or they're in Nairobi, or they're in Accra, or they're in Lagos. This is what I want to achieve with my business over a period of time. So develop a plan. And when you're developing a plan, develop a plan that spans across at least 1 to 2 years in your business, right? The next thing is map out your business model. And I think that you're going to have consequent sessions on business model. So I'm not going to go really deep into it, but under your business model, there are about 9 building blocks, which again touched on some of the things that I've spoken about. But I'm sure you're going to have a business model session, which would get you into a more deeper dive of it. And then stage 6, this is a stage that a lot of people get stuck on: gather capital. And I want to get some feedback. How many of you, has anybody here, have you raised any money for your business? um has anybody here raised money? You gathered capital, you put money aside for your business before you start? Anybody? If you have, I want to see like some emojis, some yes. Okay, I see no, I see yes. I see yes, I have. I see no, I see yes. Okay, for those that say I've said yes, how did you gather that money? How did you get the money? If you don't mind sharing. Okay, I see bootstrapping. Okay, I want to see salary. Yes, saving and investment. Saving, earning, 9 to 5. Um, Save for my income. I got a seed grant. Amazing. I worked as a graphic designer. Savings, allowance. I sold my car. Wow, amazing. Grant funding from my income. Amazing. So gather capital. And I think that so another person sold their car. Wow, we're selling cars to start our business. We need to give ourselves a round of applause. Salary, amazing. Okay, great. Grant funding. A lot of times when we think about gathering capital, we often focus on getting grant funding, investments, and that's why we get stuck. But the truth is, at the early stage of your business, there are very few people that are willing to put in money into that business, right? In fact, when you deal with VCs and investment funds, most VCs and investment funds will not invest in a fashion business that has not started. A lot of times they want you to have a proof of concept. They want you to have traction. They want to see what you've made so far. So I always tell people that when you're starting your fashion business and you're trying to gather capital, instead of looking externally, yes, you can apply for grants and all of those things, but instead of looking externally, start with looking internally, meaning, how can I gather capital internally? And even when you're gathering capital, what you need is the minimum amount to get your MVP out. So you don't need you don't need thousands of dollars to start your business. What you need is as much as you can get to develop your MVP. I can see some questions and I'm going to come into them during the question and answer section. So I don't know if there's a way to capture some of these questions, because I think I want to speak to this question I just see from Christian, but I'll come to it during the question and answer session. So you don't need You don't need all. If you have a lot of money and all of that, great, but you don't need that. In fact, I'll tell you something. Some of the best businesses start from experimenting. It starts from, okay, what is the minimum viable product, minimum viable version of this product I can put out? How can I test this market? How can I test this business? Sometimes when you come into the business with a lot of money and capital, sometimes you can lose money because you spend money on things that are not necessary. And you get a lot of established business owners telling you this, that, oh, after running my business for a number of years, this is what I've learned. I still saw somebody recently talking about how he spent thousands of dollars on a marketing campaign that did not convert, and how some of his most successful marketing campaigns have been the ones that he created simply. And even I have experienced that too in running Loud and running our institution. Some of our most viral campaigns and viral posts have been the things that we did simply. So when you start to run a business, you start to learn, okay, what works and where money should go into. Sometimes you put so much money in marketing, but what your money needs to go into is in distribution because of the type of business you run. So where you actually need to put money in is traveling, is going for trade shows, is seeing how things go. But you've put so much money in marketing, or you've put so much money in production. So you've produced so many pieces that you're struggling to sell. Sometimes what you need to focus on is how can I get my MVP out? And how can I raise capital for this? And a lot of you have answered the question in the charts. Salary, savings, family and friends, putting the money together, all of that. Start with your MVP, put it out, get a feel. What do people think about the product? How do people like the product? How many orders? I know a couple of businesses, what they've done is they created an MVP, a sample, they put it out and they did pre-orders and people ordered, right? And as people order, they produce, and off that, they've then expanded the range. What that also does for you, it gives you time to build community, to build a market. So you've not just gone to produce a lot of products and you don't have a market to sell it to. So gathering capital does not have to be complex. If you've not built your business to a certain level where you have a lot of traction, a lot of feedback, a lot of data, you can start with your MVP and focus on putting it out there. Okay, do I need to set up a simple website? Instead of building a complex Shopify website and spending a lot of money, are there platforms that I can use and put up my products and people can order? How can I test this product and test the market? Okay, I see another question about gathering capital. So we're going to come to that in the question and answer. So gather capital, then get into creation. And this is pretty simple. And this is where a lot of us focus on. We focus on producing our products, your consulting packages, your shoes, your bags, your clothing. So this isn't really complex. Creation is, creating your patterns, sewing, whatever it is, on the different layers that you solve, get into production, and after that you go into marketing. And I think marketing now is not as complex, but again, remember where we started from: identifying the market you want to serve and getting an understanding of the industry, and that has to be what informs your marketing. Some of the biggest brands, I mean, when you think of a brand like Kai Collective, I don't know how many of us know Kai Collective, or you think of a brand like this Otebe Magugu, for example, or you think of a brand like Christy Brown. A lot of these brands are successful brands, but if you run through all these different brands, their marketing is completely different. Kilenta, yes, thank you. The way they market is the way Kai Collective markets her products is completely different from the way Tebe Magugu does his. The way Kilenta markets her products is completely different from Christy Brown. And that's because they understand the market that they're trying to serve. So Tebe Magugu would, his marketing is a bit more laid back. He's not forcing you to buy. He's doing a lot of storytelling, a lot of, where the origin is coming from. And that's because he knows the market he's selling to. Kai Collective is a lot more disruptive, a lot more, you think that you've seen everything, and then you see a campaign and it's just like, oh my God, what was this person thinking, right? And that's because the audience she's selling to a younger audience. She's selling to her target market. The market the kind of people she's selling to are people who want to stand out, who are disruptive. It's a younger audience. It's not just even age, it's just what they like and what appeals to them. So even your marketing at this stage is determined by what you've identified in the beginning, in the kind of market that you want to serve. I am a consultant, I lead an institution. There's the kind of people that I want to work with and the kind of people I want to sell to. So there's a way that I market. But there are other people who do fashion business development, who do consulting, and there's a kind of audience that they want to sell to. And there's a way that they market. You need to, your marketing, your branding, how you put out your brand must align with the kind of market that you want to serve. Does your market like loud, bold, disruptive marketing? Do they want to feel like, oh my God, I just feel disrupted, invaded? Do they want to feel like I need to really think? I mean, if we go globally, one brand you can think about is Jack Moose. So the way Jack Moose does his marketing is completely different from the way Loro Piano does their marketing. And now if you go on Loro Piano's TikTok, they're now trying to be a bit more interested. And that's because they're trying to appeal to a different kind of audience. But your marketing, how you put out your brand, your branding, how you position your brand must align with the kind of market you want to serve. So sometimes the gap we see is you say you want to sell to luxury, you want to build a luxury brand, but your branding looks very it's very inconsistent. Your marketing is very loud, very it's not direct. If you're trying to sell to a luxury audience, people who buy luxury, they prefer personalized. It feels almost like a concierge. So even when your marketing needs to be targeted, it needs to be clean, it needs to be simple, right? You need to let your marketing and how you launch your brand be determined and be defined by the market you want to serve and the people you want to sell it to. If you can align those two things, your brand is going to do well in the market. So I know that my time is almost up. I don't know if we can go to the next slide quickly. I can run through it and see what's on it before we then go into questions and answers. Okay, so this was a breaking down of the things already. I spoke about this. Also, just very quickly, now that we have an idea of what a fashion business is, I want you to ask yourself, why am I starting my fashion business? Why? Why do you want to start your fashion business? Is it because fashion is cool, it's nice, everybody loves it, it looks great, it looks all of that? I'll tell you, I've worked in the fashion industry for over 7 years, 9 years now, and it's not as glamorous as it looks on the outside. It takes a lot of hard work. I mean, you are all here, you're running your businesses, so you know the challenges from production to creation. I mean, whether you're even doing fashion media, you're doing consulting, it takes a lot of work. So it cannot just be because it looks good. So why do you want to start your fashion business? Do you want to make money? That's a good reason, because it's a business and you need to get into the business to make money. So somebody says, oh, I want to make money. Amazing. To fund my music. That is a very interesting why. Do you want to make money? Do you want to tell stories? Do you want to promote heritage and culture? Do you want to solve climate issues? Do you want to help society? Maybe you're in a community, there are a lot of artisans, there are a lot of people who produce, who do leather bags, who do raffia bags, and you think that you understand marketing, so you want to push out their products. That is a good why. Passion is great, but I would say this, and I mean, passion might not be enough sometimes. What passion must do is that passion must propel you to then figure out the other reasons why you want to build the business. So you want to make money, and making money should be one of it, because your business needs money to run. You need consistent cash flow to run your business. So I'm seeing a lot of whys, whys, whys. So you can take a note and write it somewhere. Why do you want to start your fashion business? For environment, for sustainable reasons, to make money, to push storytelling, tell heritage, push culture, whatever it is. Why? Put your why. Number two, what part of the fashion industry does your business cater to? So I want to see that in the chat. What part of the industry does your business cater to? Is it consulting? Is it media? Is it leather work? Is it clothing? Is it storytelling, sustainability? Is it retail? Is it fashion shows and production? What part of the ecosystem does your business cater to? And then the final one is, how do you want this business to, I think it says to operate. How do you want this business to run? And you'll come a lot more into that when you go into the business model session, because in the business model session, you're going to have to look into your channels, into your key partners, into your key resources, how you want the business to run, how you want to manage the business, made to order, ready to wear. Do you want to produce in bulk? Do you want to outsource production? I mean, across different layers, you get a deeper dive into it. I think this is where we're going to wrap up today's session. I think that I've tried to cover and touch on as much as I think is really important for you. If you can practice those 10 different layers, every time you want to launch a product, you're starting your business, you're getting into a new market, it really would help you achieve great results. Thank you, everyone. We'll take a pause now and we'll go into question and answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Rhoda. That was an amazing session. Thank you so, so much. Truly enjoyed every single moment. And you've shared the insights that would enable each and every single one of us start from right where we are. Like you mentioned, whether we are just ideating, whether we've been operational for 1 or 2 years. So thank you so, so much. Everyone, please share your feedback. You guys will deserve an award for this engagement. Honestly, I love it. Thank you so much, Rokavi. Very insightful presentation. Martha, the slides and the recording will be shared with every single person, so don't worry about that. Yes, Mora says thank you so much. Bineta says thank you, Rhoda. Sakela says merci infiniment. Thank you so much, Sakele. Thank you, Claire. Joy says great start to the training. Thank you very much. All right, so continue to let us know your feedback so far. What's that one thing that stood out for you from the session? What's that one thing that Rhoda mentioned and you're like, yep, this is it for me. Lifesaver, I'm ready to go with this information. Let us know in the chat. Well, we take a bit of a pause before we go into questions. Renee says it was a very interesting session, really worth it. I've told you, you're here for a treat, and thank you very much for sharing your feedback. Thank you for the session. Francis says his own insight is sustainability and looking at your clothing. Yetunde says it was mind-blowing. Thank you very much. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your feedback. Natasha says, thank you so much. It was an amazing session, very insightful. Okay. All right. Very constructive. Hi, Jerry. You can access the friend channel using the interpretation icon. So please confirm if you are able to. Okay. Thank you, Rhoda. Rhoda, you were amazing. Fab start to the session. We love it. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your feedback. Catherine says raising capital was the one thing for her. Esther says the explanation of every point clearly was the one thing for her. Olajumoke says what stood out is the understanding of the industry before going fully into business. Perfect. Brady says it was an amazing pilot session. Bethany says this was so insightful and thank you for that. It felt like a future glance at what she can be doing with her business and in the sector. Amazing. Tony says it's the why. The key highlights for Victoria was that the session was a lifesaver and how to position herself globally. Amazing. I see a lot of us are also identifying our whys. Allah says, I want to share my story and how she's been able, or he or she has been able to keep the heritage of the country alive. Amazing. Okay, great, great, great. Farmer says the fact that she doesn't need to go on much funds to start. Onye says she loves how Rhoda reminded us of our why, the openness of fellow creatives. Oh wow, we have 106 messages. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts on the session so far, your feedback. Love how she broke down the stages beyond their heading. Yes, we love that too. Thank you so much for the clear presentation. Thank you. The stages, yes. So like we mentioned, this is on the fundamentals. So now you have the foundational knowledge you need to build blocks on. And like Rhoda said, there are other sessions on elements of these stages. So there's another session on your business model. There's another session on marketing. There's another session on selling globally as well. So it's step by step as we go along. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your feedback so far, the one thing that stood out to you. So we'll be going into the question and answer session now. So if you have any questions, I know some of us have shared earlier. So feel free to share questions you may have so that we can address them as well. All right, let me stop sharing for now so you can see myself and Rhoda clearly. Great. Okay. So I'll be moderating our questions as we go along. Feel free to still put your questions in the chat and we'll go through every single one of them. Okay. I can see a number of us have our hands raised. So please, if you have any questions or anything you want to clarify, please share your comment or your question in the chat. That way we can better manage and address every single person at once. Okay. All right. So we're going through our questions now. So the first question, Rhoda, you mentioned this question as well. I believe Christian sent this in. So is passion alone enough to venture into a fashion business? Even if the business type is still unknown, you're still uncertain about capital generation. And on the short term, it's probably cool to start it now, but on the long term, you still have these uncertainties, especially regarding capital.
Okay, amazing. That's a lovely question. And I think that I can relate a bit to that question. Just going off like where I started with Running Loud a couple of years ago, before it was okay to now run institutions. So I don't think that passion is enough, like I shared earlier, because there's so many elements that make up a business and make up the success of a business, right? One of it is demand. One of it is being able to make money from the business. But if you think that this is something that there is a need for, or that there is a common need for, what you can start to do is work on the development and putting it together and doing research and creating frameworks and initiatives around it. But what I would recommend is if you've not figured out how to make money from that business, maybe you then want to do that as a side job while you are building your expertise in the industry. So you can be doing that. You can be working in other layers of the industry, building your expertise while working on this idea that you have and developing it before you go fully into it. Because even to develop that idea, if we're being realistic, you need a bit of funding, even if it's for research and development, if it's to build the framework. So what I always recommend is when you're working on something that is a bit new, you haven't figured out how to make money from it yet, and you don't have capital, you don't have money backing you somewhere. What you want to do is work on that on the side, look at how you can get your footing into the industry, in other parts of the industry, or in any other business that you're doing. And I mean, that was what I did for example, before I started to fully focus on consulting and Running Loud. I spent a couple of years working in the fashion industry, working with other institutions, working with other people, gaining an understanding of how the industry works, before pivoting into focusing fully on leading the institution. So I hope that answers the question. And maybe if you're open to sharing what you're working on, it would be great so that we can also give you feedback on, how you can make it work. So you can share it in the chat so that we can give you feedback.
All right, thanks a lot, Rhoda. So we have the next question again regarding a bit leaning more towards capital. So firstly, what would you say or what would you advise is a minimum amount of money someone should look at to get started with their fashion business? And then also besides bootstrapping, having funds from friends and family, what's your advice on taking loans from banks to gain further capital? Not at the beginning phase of the business, but as you grow and scale.
Okay. I'm trying to remember the first question. I'm sorry, it skipped my mind now.
The minimum, what would you advise the minimum
Okay,
amount?
yes. So I cannot give a minimum amount because it depends on the kind of business, different factors, your location. So what it will cost you to start a business in Lagos is not what it will cost you to start a business in Accra. It's not what it will cost you to start a business in Cape Town. It's not what it will cost you to start a business in Nairobi. So there are so many factors that inform what that minimum amount should be. In fact, in the same locations, two businesses that are quite similar might have different minimum amounts because they are other factors that contribute to, starting your business. So I cannot say this is a minimum amount. I think the major things is you want to have enough to produce your MVP. So from designing to production to putting it out there and getting feedback, you want to have enough to produce that, because when you put out your MVP, you can test the market, you can get some orders, and that can help you start to build continuous cash flow. Then on the second bit of taking loans, I don't think that taking loans are a bad idea to run your business. But what I always say is that if you're taking loans, those loans need to be some sort of investment. Those loans need to go into things that augment and push up your cash flow. Meaning, I don't recommend taking loans for consuming or for just sustaining the business, right? Because what then happens is you might struggle to repay the loan. But if you're taking a loan to push up your cash flow, so for example, you're getting a lot of demands, all of a sudden a lot of people have found your brand, a lot of people want to buy from you, you don't have enough machines, but you've seen consistent demand. So you need a loan to expand your machine or expand your space. You can take that loan because your cash flow is going to increase your cash flow, and that can help you pay it back. Because remember, the thing with loans is loans are not free money. Loans are money that you have to pay back. So whatever that loan is going into, it has to be something that helps you make more money, not just something that you're trying to solve. You're trying to solve a leakage, or you're trying to solve something. If it's not directly affecting your cash flow or helping you make more money, I would not recommend, because you might struggle to repay it back. But if it's something that would push up your cash flow, you already have the market, you're seeing consistency. So for example, maybe you've gotten a wholesale order from a boutique or a store you want to produce in batch, you take a loan for that. Yes, because there is already a demand, there is already some sort of supply coming from somewhere. So that's my recommendations where loans are concerned.
All right, thank you so much, Rhoda. So we'll have the next question being, so would you say it's possible to combine various business opportunities within the fashion industry, or you would advise sticking to one?
Okay, so my advice is you start with one. To build anything great, it requires a lot of focus and it requires a lot of consistency. And this is not only in the fashion industry, this is generally. So when you're starting out, I say focus on one and really figure that one out, become good with it. And as you grow, you can then start to branch out into other parts of it. So for example, if you remember the example I gave earlier when I was teaching, I said, if you're a designer, you have a large manufacturing space, you're great with manufacturing, you can start to think about sustainable production. But that's on the basis that you've already established yourself as a designer, you have a space, you have machinery, and you already understand how manufacturing and production works. So I would always say, at least for the first couple of months and years, focus on one, get really good at it, build an audience around it, because at the end of the day, trust is important, and it's your audience that will propel you even as you go into other different parts. Sometimes when we do too many different things at the same time, we end up not being so great at any one. Again, I can use myself as an example. I used to have a fashion brand because, of course, I'm a stylish person. I love creating, I love looking great. I had a fashion brand, and I tell people that my fashion brand was my quickest, my most successful business. It took off immediately. It was great. But at some point, I had to say to myself, what do I want to focus on initially? Because it was also the foundational stage of building Loud and building the institution. So I picked the institution. Maybe now I'm at a point where I can say, you know what, we're on a certain level. I have a strong team. We've established ourselves. I can now try to go into, my fashion brand because it's something that I love and I want to experiment. But at that initial stage, you need to be able to focus on one aspect of your business and ensure that you hack that aspect. You become really great at it before branching into other parts. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Rhoda. So the next question is, in the 10 stages, what's the major difference between stage 4 of developing just a plan and stage 5 of your actual business model?
Okay, so a brand and a business are two different things. A brand and a business are two different things. A brand is a business is a brand, but they are two different things. What that means is what a brand is, branding is a lot on the external, how people see you, how people is what people think about you, how people feel you. how people place you, your positioning. When you're talking about you developing a brand, you're thinking about, oh, what kind of colors? What do I want to represent? What should my name be? What positioning do I want to have? What kind of logo do I want to have? What places do I want to place this brand? So branding is a lot more about what you look like on the outside, your exterior, how you are experienced, what people think about you, how you deliver, how, people exactly. It's the identity of the business. Thank you, Esther. It's the identity. It's how people feel you, see you, think about you. So when you're developing your brand, you're sitting down to say, okay, what's the name of this business? Or if it's a product, okay, what do I want to name this product? What's the name of this? What colors do I want to work with? What identity, what story do I want to tell? That's where branding comes into place. Your business model is like, in fact, the perfect example I can give is a human being. The brand is the skin, what you see outside, your skin, your face, all of these different things that you see. But the business is the skeleton, is what is inside the framework, which is what really makes the brand work, or how the brand makes money, the framework behind the brand, how we produce, how we operate. That's really where your business model comes into. So your brand is the exterior part, what you see, what looks great, and then your business is the skeleton, is the internal part, the framework that guides how the business runs and how the business is established. Does that make any sense? Was that clear?
Oh, that was very clear. Thank you.
Okay,
Let me not
amazing.
speak for the entrepreneurs. Please feel free to use the chat room to let us know if that was very clear to you. Thank you so much. Okay, so while people engage, because of our time, we'll just move to the next question. So I would merge similar questions because of our time. So for identifying your target audience, how would you say it's best to focus on one target audience? So, for example, you want to launch a unisex brand. Do you just focus on women first and later diversify into men, or do you launch both at the same time? And in also doing this, how do you make sure that you perfectly meet the needs of your customers, or is that something that evolves over time?
Okay, amazing. I like this question. I think it goes back a bit to what I was touching on earlier. With identifying your target audience, determining if you want to build a unisex or you want to focus on one gender. I think you need to ask yourself. It goes back to a bit about your why and what you want to do, the problem you want to solve, and also there are brands that are androgynous. In fact, now there are a lot of brands that are androgynous. So you can say, you know what, that's the kind of brand I want to build. You sort of need to ask yourself where your expertise falls under. You want to ask yourself, what audience you feel most connected to. And you can also be off business. People say women buy more. Men's things are more expensive, but women buy more. So you need to do all of this, data and positioning and ask yourself, for me right now, what with where I want to start and the kind of business I want to run, where do I want to position myself? And an androgynous brand is different from a unisex brand. Androgynous brand is a brand that makes pieces that both men and women can wear. Why a unisex brand is a brand that makes pieces for men and pieces for women. So I think that you need to ask yourself where you want to position it. And also you need to also ask yourself your capacity. Because whatever you are doing, you want to do it well. Right? Do you have the capacity to start a unisex brand? Can you produce for men excellently and produce for women? Because designing for men and designing for women are completely different. Men's pants and women's pants are completely different, right? So you need to ask yourself, what's your capacity? Which are you able to tell stories well for men and women? It's the way women would experience stories. Men will probably go towards functionality. Oh, this looks great. So when you're doing storytelling for men, you're leaning towards functionality. You're showing all the different ways, that the different places you can wear this thing to, how this can make your life better. Women would care a bit more about style. How does it make me feel? How does it position me? Who else is wearing this? So it's a completely different ball game, right? I would always recommend that if you, instead of doing unisex, you can start with the one that you're most vast in, establish yourself at that, and then you can start to, go into women's wear or into the other one. Or you can run an androgynous brand if you feel like, okay, that's what you want to lean towards. So you want to lean in towards making pieces that are lounge wears, comfort wears, things that both men and women can wear. That's completely different. So that's what I'm going to say. Focus on the one that you're really great at, and then after a while, you can get into the other one as you build strongly.
All right, thank you so much, Rhoda. So the next question will be regarding storytelling or marketing. So would you advise for a fashion entrepreneur to start storytelling when they are still at the MVP stage, the early stages of their business, or wait till you have a product that is sellable and bringing in traction? And then also, how does one position themselves globally in terms of having a presence with storytelling in the global fashion market?
Amazing. That's a lovely question. Storytelling is really about telling your story, right? And when you're building a brand at the initial stage, in fact, with the way the climate, and this is where I'd say research is important, because if you do a lot of research, you realize that the audience, the buyers are buying into a lot more of the creation stories before it started. How was it created? So if you're just starting a brand, you're just starting a product, you want to pay attention to telling the story from the beginning. Now, do you want to push out that story immediately? That's different. You can decide that, you know what, I'm going to be recording my progress. I'm going to be documenting every aspect of building this business, but I don't feel comfortable to put it out yet or until I've launched the business, and that is fine. But you want to ensure that you're documenting every single part of your journey, of your business, of your creation. So I'll say start storytelling, from the beginning as you start, as you do research, or you're about to start a business, you're traveling to another city where your textile is being produced, carry us along on that. And storytelling can even start from your own personal community, your own personal pages, your own personal profiles, even before you then go into launching your brand and diverting that attention to your brand. Again, the audience you're selling to matters, but now with the way marketing works, with the way the audience works now, everybody is a bit, we're all nosy, right? We want to know how you're doing it, how are you making it, what's the story? So storytelling can start from creation. You don't have to wait until your brand is established. Now, getting into global audience. One controversial thing and thought that I have is that it's better to focus on being a local champion in course and then pivoting into global before getting into global. The only time where maybe getting into global storytelling and all of that works is if you're already in that ecosystem. So maybe you're already, maybe you lived in the US, in the UK for the longest time, and then you've moved back to Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa or Kenya, or Zambia or Namibia. I mean, any country, then that might work because you already understand how that ecosystem works. Because like I shared earlier, the way that fashion, storytelling, and all of these things work in the global world is completely different from the way it works here. And one thing that you want to establish even before you start to look into other things is you want to establish your voice. You want to refine your story. You want to be settled in who you are, what your brand represents, the story that you want to tell, the value that you want to give the world before you start to look into getting into the global mix. Because sometimes if you don't already solidify your story, it's easy to get lost in that entire ecosystem. It's easy to get there and you're constantly jumping from one thing to the other. So start with where you are right now. Who are you? What brand are you building? What problem are you solving? What story are you telling? Where do you come from? What is the story of your products? What makes up every single aspect of your brand and your business? Start from that. Build something locally. Refine, create your own local framework and start to tell that story now within your reach. And as it grows, you can then start to focus on pivoting a bit more into global. And then when you want to pivot into global, you also need to sort of identify the areas and the regions that you want to get into because the world is large. There's Asia, there's America, there's Europe, right? You need to decide, okay, what part of, I think that for my kind of brand, for my aesthetic, Europe will be an easy market to enter into. Be strategic about the markets you want to get into, be strategic about the global spaces you want to get into, and then walk back. So in those spaces, what platforms already exist? I'll tell you guys something, the best way to get into any market, any new region, any new country is to get into the existing platforms in those regions. The mistake we make sometimes is we go into foreign places, foreign markets, foreign audiences, and we want to sort of stand on our own, do our own thing. But you're coming into an already existing ecosystem. So ask yourself, what platforms already exist? or you want to get into the US market, you want to, start to tell your story on the US platform. What platforms already exist? There's so many platforms. There's Raise Fashion, which, focuses on telling stories of like Black designers, amplifying Black designers. There's the CFDA, the Council of Fashion Designers in America. There's so many fashion, there's smaller platforms. So identify a platform and ask yourself to try to join the platform, be a part of the platform. It's easier to enter into an ecosystem, into a market, when you are aligning yourself with a platform and collaborating, than when you try to break in alone. It's a lot harder that way. And when you align to a platform, they can tell you what works. Oh, this works in the US, this doesn't work in the US. This works in Paris, this doesn't work. Align yourself to a find platforms, all across. In fact, in the West, in Asia, in Europe, in America, there's so many more platforms. I think here in Africa, we don't even have as many. There are very few platforms, like Loud, Fashionomics, and Co. But in the global West, there's so many platforms. So find platforms, align to those platforms. They're platforms for emerging designers. Those are the things that makes it a lot easier for you to get into those markets and into those audiences.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Rhoda. This was an overpacked. I was going to say packed, but it's overpacked. So thank you so much for all the insights shared. I see that we are still sending in questions. Please, because of our time, direct your questions to our help desk link and you'll get a response as well. So whether with the help desk link to be shared in the chat, as well as you can also reach out to us at fashionomics@ict.africa and we will address your questions. Okay, so just to wrap up, Rhoda,
and they can also reach out to me. I'd be glad to answer questions too.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah, so please feel free to also share your contact information within the chat. And just to wrap up, Rhoda, what's one liner as a goodbye, I say, for now from this session?
That's okay. Let me put my email in the chat. Or okay, I'll come back to that. I think one liner would be that, like, where I started from, which is that there's so much potential, heritage, craftsmanship, storytelling, unique design, even unique ways of doing things that we have as a people across different countries. And it is one thing that the world is interested in, is looking out for. So for everybody here who's building a product, building a brand, building a business, building a solution, there is a demand for you. I think that I'm really saying this because I want us to have more confident creators, more confident producers, because we are not just consumers, we are producers. And there is a demand for you. There is a demand for the product you're building, the service you're building, everything that you're building. So build with confidence and implement. I think this is also where we struggle. Implement everything that you're learning, implement, because it matters. You can lose out on big opportunities if you don't implement. Your business can do so much better if you implement. In fact, your confidence as a creator increases once you know that you're building based on data, based on knowledge, and based on proven strategies and framework that you've been taught already. So I think that that's what I'm going to say. There's a demand for your work. There's a demand for your product. There's a demand for your creativity. There's a demand for your service. We must be more producers and not just consumers, not just within our continent, but globally. And secondly, ensure to implement the frameworks. And we have to do the work. Doing the work and creating that framework is really what amplifies our creativity, amplifies our story, and amplifies everything that we are building. So thank you so much, everyone. I think that some people have put up my details in the chat already.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. Yeah, so the brand name, but then still the contact.
Okay.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much, Rhoda. This was a great session. We're very, very grateful for the insights shared, the knowledge shared as well. And we look forward to the implementation, like you mentioned, of every single insight that you have shared. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We've come to the end of our first session. I know we've shared our feedback, our testimonials of the session so far. It was brilliant. It's been a great session. and how each single insight that has been shared has been beneficial to each and every single one of us. So thank you so much. Again, if your questions have not been addressed during the session, they will be. So reach out via our help desk. Rhoda would also be sharing her contact details as well. Oh, perfect. Perfect timing. As well in the chat. We have also been in communication with us via email and WhatsApp. If you're not in the WhatsApp group chat yet, please make sure to join so you have timely updates of everything going on. And then in addition to that, if you're yet to fill the baseline form, that's just to make sure we serve you better and offer the best value to you as well. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll be seeing you again in 2 days on Thursday, same time, same place. And we look forward to the second session on how to build your business for scale. So now you know the fundamentals of it. Then how do you now structure your business for it to scale? And as Rhoda mentioned, you begin to access global opportunities, begin to access and position yourself globally as well. Okay. All right. So again, like we did in the last session, let's turn on our videos if it's not on already to have a good picture. So let me take myself off the highlights. Give me a minute. Can turn on your video. Okay. Perfect. Let me remove highlight. Yeah. All right. Please feel free to smile. You can throw up a piece. You can do a silly face. I mean, we are creative, so the best way to express yourself, feel free. So feel free to express yourself while we take some screenshots of today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Look forward to having you on Thursday as well. Amazing. I'm loving the various expressions I see on the screen. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you again on Thursday. Thank you so much. Feel free to continue to engage and interact in the chats. Let us know your thoughts, your feedback. We are here to serve you. And thank you so much, Rhoda, for an insightful session. And we look forward to the collaborations, the implementation, and the growth of every single one of us. Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye.